A very good evening and warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows. Welcome back to a space that will be familiar to some of you, I'm sure. We've been here often enough over the years. This is the Old Oak at Royal Johannesburg, and I'm here for a couple of reasons. One of them is that just over my shoulder, just outside, is the end of the on-course formalities of the Sunshine Tours annual celebration. It's a celebration that they focus around greatness and just how well golf is doing in South Africa. And as soon as I'm done with this, I'll be nipping next door to host their evening function and celebrate with them. And that makes today a rather opportune collision of greatness, because while next door the Sunshine Tour is celebrating the very best of golf, so today we're joined by my good friend Michael Fridjhon, the godfather of South African wine writing and judging and criticism and occasionally drinking of wine, who is in very high spirits because just a couple of weeks ago the official announcement was made on this year's Investec Trophy Wine Show. And it was a very successful trophy wine show with one or two surprises, and one in particular that has really got the wine world talking. And for me, that is the greatest result of all of this particular edition of what is an excellent show, the fact that it's got conversation around wine going all over the country. And no matter what the point of departure of that conversation is and how the debate is angled or slanted or fueled, it means people are talking about wine, and that is not a bad thing. So that is just one of the many good results. We have three of the star performers, including the one who's got so many people talking, as well as Mr. Fridjhon himself. And they'll be joining me on what's been a pretty good day for South Africa. If, like me, you have cricket running through the veins, then you will have been up in the very early hours of this morning, and a very tense finish for South Africa at a Cricket World Cup with rain involved. Never. But we got through, we're into a semi-final, and all the more reason to raise a glass of wine in celebration. And so that's my other reason for being here, rather than the clubhouse itself, although the Old Oak is closed on a Monday. I've got hold of a key, snuck in, bought myself a glass of wine, and in the solitude of one of my favorite restaurants, have the chance to catch up with some of my favorite winemakers and one of my great friends in the wine industry. So all of that is coming up on today's show. Before we get into it, though, let's have a quick look at the latest wine news. The Durbanville Wine Valley has got some celebration coming up. Now, when you think of Durbanville, you automatically think of Sauvignon Blanc, and not without good reason. People like Durbanville Hills and Demersdal and de Grendel, part of a group of winemakers who produce some excellent wine, and over the last few years, collectively, has been a very nice Durbanville wine that's been made by the states together. But this is also an area that can make some rather decent red, whether it be the more recent Rubaiyat from de Grendel or go all the way back to that famous near mythical GS66. The Durbanville area has got red wine credentials as well, and you've got a chance to sample them in about a month or so's time. It is Friday the 2nd of August out at the Loch Lynn Wine Estate. And if that's one you haven't been to, maybe you haven't heard of it, it's one of the smaller ones, your chance to head out and explore. 280 Rand gets you an evening of tasting at Loch Lynn, and it is red wine from across the Durbanville terroir. And I think that's going to be a really nice occasion to see just how well Durbanville can do with red as well as it can with white. Mediterranean Nights, Pete Gofford, very, very good friend of mine. You might have caught him week before last on the new Dan Nichols Show podcast. He was in the very first episode when we ran on television, kicked off our 16 seasons, and he's one of the early guests on the podcast. He is also a guest of honor and chef of honor at the Lust Bistro and Bakery up in Vredenlust, and that is coming up on the 29th of June, so this Saturday, and then towards the end of next month and the end of August. 1,250 Rand for a four-course dinner for you to enjoy with Pete. I think it's really good value, not just because he's a fantastic cook, but he's one of the great characters of the food and wine world, tells some terrific stories, and he's usually quite happy to have a glass of wine or two with you as well. So you're getting more than just some food, you're getting a great character and a lovely night. You can head over to the Vredenlust website for more details. The Southern Sun's got a brand new menu. We were there last week doing our Father's Day show. Was that the week before? Our Father's Day show, which was very special, where we had Dani and Dani Statler together. We had Neil and Warren Ellis together and Etienne and Christo Lariche together. They're doing a lot of very good work at the Southern Sun. Miguel Chan is one of the more industrious members of our wine community. I shall be back there, I think it's later this week, catching up with some members of the Bordeaux wine community. And I think Mr. Fridjhon will be able to give me some more detail there. But whatever you're headed to the Southern Sun for, you've now got a lunch to add to the list of reasons to visit. It's quite a comprehensive selection, wine overseen by Miguel. Again, you can head over to Southern Sun's digital platforms for a little more detail on a brand new selection of menus that are now launched at Southern Sun at the Santon Sun. Then Upper Union, I love the work Amori Berger is doing with her kitchen. I love the work that Tessa Rasdal and Barine Souls are doing. It's such an inspirational story, and it'd be a great story even if the wine was just, oh yeah, that's pretty good, but lovely story. But the wine is terrific and matches this wonderfully inspired and driven and fun member of the wine community. She charts her story from working very unsuccessfully as an au pair for the Hamilton Russells, all the way through now to having recently purchased her own land, which she's now starting to cultivate, and in the meantime from grapes from the Hemelanada Valley, producing her Pinot Noir and her Chardonnay in limited editions. So the chance to run through a vertical tasting along with Amori's 5 courses gives you a splendid evening out. Book through Upper Union's website and join Barine and Chef Amori on the 10th of July. All right, for you to add to your diary there. There's also some Bordeaux tasting, as I alluded to, coming up. We'll get some detail from Michael just a little later. But first, it is in to this year's edition of the Investec Trophy Wine Show. Michael Fridjhon has run this for some time. He assembled, as he always does, a panel of judges that has an international flair to it. 3 terrific, world-renowned wine judges joined him this year, along with a selection of local judges. And again, a really interesting selection. And they had a lot of work to do because there are always many entries to one of the most prestigious wine competitions in South Africa. So who came out on top? Well, we'll find out from Michael. And you can probably guess who some of the top performers are by our other guests. We have, in no particular order, Zinaschke Steyn is with us from Nederburg. Izele van Blerk is with us from KWV The Mentors, and Morné Vrey from Delaire Graaf, along with Michael Fridjhon. Guys, welcome all of you. Lovely to have you on the show. Lovely to be able to celebrate. I know it's a double celebration for you today, Michael, given you're one of the few people we regularly have on the show who has international cricket pedigree, having played that one international game for an English 11 against a French 11. But we'll hold off on the in-depth cricket analysis and instead charge into the wine analysis, because it's been a fascinating year for the Trophy Wine Show. Before some of the specific results, paint a broader picture for this year and why this is such an important trophy show, such an important celebration of South African wine each year.
Dan, firstly, thank you for letting us talk about it. Trophy Wine Show has been running since 2002, managed to get through the COVID years with judging every year. And what we really have seen and tracked over those 2 decades plus is this extraordinary transformation of the South African wine industry at so many different levels, in the absolute quality of the wines that are submitted, on the dynamic existence of the industry. There are so many new producers who finally get there to the silvers and golds. There's extraordinary consistency from the judging panels because they change every year. And yet, as you will see from laureates like Izele and Morné, for example, and also Nederburg, what you see is that the people who perform well are judged as top performers in most years by most panels, which tells you that the judging methodology works perfectly well. And for me, the excitement of this year's show, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it, is both the spread in pricing, the spread in regions, the fact that there are still newcomers on the podium after 22 years. We are seeing Cape Wine really putting its best foot forward.
And that is being showcased by our top performers. Let's welcome them quickly to the show and get a feel for why this one is so important to them. Izele, Michael mentioning that you are no stranger to this particular space. You're no stranger to any awards. And I saw the plans for the enlargement of the KWV cellar, which is not to make more wine. It's simply to fit in all the trophies that you keep winning with all of the fantastic mentors range that you produce. Give us a sense of this one. Why is this one important? Why does this one put a smile on the face of such an established winemaker such as yourself?
Hi everyone. Yes, no, I think it's always a privilege winning awards, and we had a conversation this morning in the office, and I always say, Gary Player used to say, you as lucky as you get if you practice really hard, and it's I think we've been practicing for 10 to 15 years now, and but you still are lucky if you win a good award. But yeah, being in the top producer at this year's competition, it's always a privilege, and I think the whole KWV team is so proud, and they are so happy with the results, and being consistent, not just in one competition, but across not just South Africa, but all over the world. I think that's the aim that we try to do and strive to put South African wines out in the world, not just in South Africa. So yeah, for us, we had good celebrations, and we are still celebrating, like you can see, maybe every night. But yes, getting through a vigorous tasting like the Old Mutual Trophy Wine Show and being best producer, competing with the likes of Nederburg, Delaire, Graafs. You're going to talk to Zinaschke and Morné now. It's incredible wines, incredible winemakers, and just being named in the same sentence as the other winemakers is always a privilege.
And that leads to what I wanted to ask you, Morné, because on one hand, there are the judges themselves, and you always know if Michael's involved, it's going to be some A-list wine judges, but it's also the company you keep that marks you out. And it's all well and good to get a top result, but when it sits in the context of a lot of other great names competing for those same results, I think it adds somewhat to it. And that, I'm sure, makes this particular one a space that gives you great joy as a winemaker.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thank you, everybody, and hi. Yeah, it's always great to be part of the trophy gang at the Trophy Wine Show. We've for the past many years, we've always been very lucky, and I think it just shows like hard work pays off. You know, we are at Delaire, we try really to make the best we possibly can, and we try and make the vineyards grow as best we could, and a lot of effort there. And I think it's just nice to see that our efforts are being paid off by these competitions. And I think Trophy Wine Show is, for me, one of those competitions that really stands out in terms of the quality of judges and the consistency that we see every year in this competition. Yeah, it's always great to win something. This year we've been particularly very well, which I'm super proud of. And yeah, like, super exciting.
If you look, Zinaschke, at these sorts of awards, these spaces where you put yourself forward for judging, it's not something you have to do. You don't absolutely need to. And when you have the might and the history and the heritage of a brand like Nederburg, it's not going to make or break you, but it's still something that is very important to, I suppose, put out into the market, into public space, that we're out here, we're having an impact, we're sitting alongside some of the great winemakers. Would that be the motivation that gets a big brand like Nederburg still involved in this kind of space?
Yes, Dan. I think before the show started, we actually had this chat where Izele mentioned that accolades like these actually play a huge part in terms of sales of wines, because we've all seen a massive incline in sales after the competition, for which we are very, very grateful for. And I think for a brand like Nederburg, we are very rich in history. I mean, 231 years young this year. But we've reached a space where I personally feel that the brand has been forgotten a bit about. And we are known for our consistency, but we need to remind consumers again about the quality that you get in a bottle of Nederburg when you buy it. And competitions like these really help cement that ultimate consistency and quality. It's a testimony to what we do. And what we do is ultimately, like Izele said, it's a team effort. And we are very glad, and especially for a product like the Winemasters Shiraz, Nederburg is quite well known for cab and cab-based blends. But I think this award, or these 3 awards that we got at the Investec Trophy Show, just shows that we literally are very committed to quality and consistency in every single range that Nederburg produces.
And that was reflected by the judges. And we'll find out why from Michael in a moment. Kulu Fine Wines saying hi, Izele, on Instagram. Gerard Perrault. There's a familiar sounding surname. Well done, Izele van Blerk. Every time we have Izele on the show, we get this army of Izele fans who join us cheering her on. I love that, about how much she's celebrated in the wine industry. And I see a whole pile of other people. Derek Pratt Jones is watching on Instagram. Morgan Steyn is on there amongst a number of our wine group. Lovely to have you all watching and enjoying the show. Michael, let's have a look at 2024. Give us the nuts and bolts. What were the entries like in terms of size? And what was your sense of the quality of this year's field?
It was an interesting year because bear in mind that 2023 was the rainy vintage. So there was reason to suspect that there'd be quality issues affecting wines from that vintage. But by and large, this year we're judging 2023 whites rather than 2023 reds. And most of the whites were in before the rain. So we had a lovely crop of 2023 whites. And of course, we also have the 22s and the 21s. And those are very strong vintages. So the overall quality was exceptional. The entry slightly down on last year. I think it's a trend we're seeing in quite a lot of competitions. And that's a function of a few things. The industry is under a lot of pressure. And I think sometimes they seem to think that maybe they shouldn't risk their reputations or their wallets going into the shows. The truth of the matter is that anybody who's ever won an award at the Trophy Wine Show will tell you that there's a direct impact on sales, and especially for people who are less well known. Last year's best value winner sold their entire stock, which is nearly 5,000 bottles, within the month after the results came out. So in that sense, it's an occasion for people to make decisions about where to play. And certainly my faith in the judging methodology and in the quality of the judging, I think, is vindicated by the results we've seen this year. Really strong overall, really nice red wine representation. Usually, and this happens most years, we'll end up saying at the feedback session, wish our red wines were as strong as our whites. This year, there really was a very good balance between red wine laureates, white wine laureates. If the one thing that I have to pull out of all those results would be the strength of the Chardonnay class. There was just an extraordinary depth of quality, and having attended the 2 public tastings in Cape Town last week and Johannesburg the week before, I went round and tasted those Chardonnays. There were just silvers and golds on the table. They were all fantastic wines, and the lead judge, I suppose, on that panel would have been Lisa Perotti-Brown, who used to edit Robert Parker's Wine Advocate and now runs the Wine Independent. And her feedback on the Chardonnay class was that it is world-class and can take on California and Burgundy. And that was certainly our feeling from the wines we saw. And that's certainly a tribute, therefore, to Morné's wine as the best Chardonnay of show and also the best premium wine of show.
Well, let's go into Morné then. This is high praise indeed, Mr. Vrey. I've spent many years happily drinking your wine, but it's often been the red wine. And yet, if we look at the Banhoek Valley over the last few years, people like Bartney down the road, Capensas, yourselves, there is some outstanding Chardonnay coming through. What is it about Banhoek that is allowing you to produce wine that is putting such a skip in Michael Fridjhon's step?
Yeah, Dan, I think the Bannock is very, I mean, as we all know, those you do not know, the Bannock is known for Chardonnay, Cabernet Franc, and Cabernet Sauvignon. That's our three varieties we do the most, we focus the most on. On Delaire and specifically on our Chardonnays, we planted on more the cooler sites on the farm. So if you know the property, we started around 340 meters all the way up to 530 meters. And the highest Chardonnay is planted on 500 meters. So we got all these kind of elements that's just fantastic for Chardonnay. We get the ripeness from the heat, but also we also get some lots of heavy sun exposure to some of the blocks, and that just gives that elevated acidity for us. I think the Bannock is really, because it's so mountainous in different aspects. It's not each vineyard is different, and each vineyard contributes to just another part of the blend. I mean, the Bannock Chardonnay 2022 is a blend of 6 different parcels scattered all over the estate. I mean, for those you know, Delaire, we're only 17.5 hectares, and 6 parcels is quite a lot, but all planted on specific parts. And yeah, the Bannock is just really producing those beautiful ripe Chardonnays, but with some freshness and a bit more elevated acidity. I think that's how I can summarize the Chardonnay we get in the valley, with the beautiful freshness is always in the end.
One of the key components of any wine anywhere in the world is a sense of evolution, and styles change, consumer preferences differ, climate impacts on what we can and cannot make. But the switch in Chardonnay over the last 10, 15 years has been pronounced, largely gone are those big battering pieces of buttered wood that would often come through, and instead there is a lightness of touch. There is so much more of the fruit being celebrated for its elegance and for its beauty. Is there a sense for you, certainly in Banhoek, that we've now hit our stride, we've found our sweet spot, and we now really know where South African Chardonnay needs to be?
That's a very good question. It's all very interesting because the winemakers in the Banhoek, we're all individual. We all have our own opinions about how to make Chardonnay, how Chardonnay should taste, and how it should be put together. And but still, I think the quality trumps here. The valley, you know, it doesn't matter how we make the Chardonnays. Although I think we're kind of getting more towards a modern, less mellow, less rich, fuller style of Chardonnays. But it's just the quality of the fruit in the valley is fantastic. Like I said, there's different winemakers in the valley, and we all make equally good Chardonnay, but just slightly different. But the quality is always there.
And it's put Chardonnay very firmly back on the map, because there was an almighty charge from Chenin Blanc over the last few years. And I love the fact that we've got a number of grapes that are really doing South Africa such justice in different spaces. Chenin, though, did raise a few eyebrows for quality, Michael, and in particular, it was from our Mentors producer. Talk me through the Chenin class this year and why it was Izele's that really made an impact.
It was a really interesting Chenin class this year for 2 reasons. It's always pretty much the same size, so it was the same 60 plus wines that were judged. We had 1 or 2 fewer golds, and I'm there when the golds are being discussed, and I'm there to rubber stamp the panel decision, or to argue with them, or to try and nudge the panel into taking 1 or 2 of their top silvers into gold. And the 2 Chenin golds were stand apart in terms of quality. To have pushed anything from silver into gold wouldn't have been entirely fair to the 2 clear gold medal winners. So then those 2 wines go to the trophy judging panel, which is all 9 judges sitting together. It's the only time where there's no discussion, and the arithmetical points make the call. And in the end, the KWV, the Mentors, came forward as a clear winner. It has everything. It's not often you can say that about a wine. It delivers right now without being simple or forward. It's got wonderful layering. The oak is not intrusive. There's a sense of richness, of a kind of leasiness that doesn't sit with a kind of sweetness. So it's textural, it's dense, it's got concentration, it's got lovely fruit layering. I mean, it's a very hard wine to fault, and the score reflects just how good it is. It's a wine that really, if you love Chenin Blanc, you owe yourself to go out and buy at least a case if there's one left.
And I'm not sure there will be, because Izele, to build on what Zinaschke was saying a little earlier on, this award, this Chenin Blanc celebration from Michael and team, has had quite an impact on shifting wine out of your cellar.
Yeah, like we said just prior to the show, it's incredible. And Michael, to you and the team, thank you and congratulations on. We've seen a spike in sales over the last week and a half. I think overall the KWV team's been working so hard to get the right quality in the bottle. And as you know, we produce about 16 million liters of wine every year. And with these special parcels that we have, we actually get the opportunity to play around. And I think the white wine team did exceptionally well. And just the focus on quality and working with certain blocks and understanding. And I know the saying that everyone is always saying that the wine is made in the vineyard, but understanding the vineyard as a winemaker, and you can make exceptionally good wine if you understand the vineyard, but you can also make exceptionally crappy wine if you mess it up in the winery. So it's a combination of really good viticulture and winemaking team and understanding what we need to achieve. But yeah, sales has been doing really well, and I just want to say thank you to Michael and his team for the competition. And yeah, I think we might even start entering even more.
Like, I think the thanks will be responded to in kind, because to have you entered is always a good mark for a competition, because the space that you manage within KWV is one you've carved out as not just your own, but your own to be sought after by many wine collectors. Give people a sense, for if they aren't aware, just how the Mentors works, and from that, how this Chenin Blanc emerged as one of the wines you decided you wanted to make for this particular collection.
So the Mentor cellar was created in 2006, like as an experimental cellar to uplift the whole quality of the KWV portfolio. And we had a few really influential wine people coming to KWV and helping the whole winemaking team to start looking at different winemaking techniques, different barrels. So the Mentor cellar is literally a small little cellar in between the biggest cellars. And it's all about experimentation and innovation and playing around and giving the winemakers the opportunity to do things but different than the normal, like I always say, the so typical KWV traditional white label. So we actually can push the boundaries, and everything we do in this winery actually needs to be mistakes. And it gives the winemakers the opportunity to just go out and play around and say, this worked, this doesn't work. And we can take it to the bigger wineries and say, if you take, for instance, a Swartland Chenin and you do it with 80% of natural ferment, play around with 10% of whole bunches, do natural ferments in barrels, in tanks, and all of those different components. And so we always have a Chenin Blanc in the Mentors range. It showed over years that it's very consistent in quality. So this is from the Swartland region. All is bush vines, 32 years old. And it really, this block has been exceptional over the past few years. And it's just really showcasing the best of Chenin Blanc. But it's exciting working with all these different regions and all these different winemaking techniques, and we actually just try to make mistakes and put it in a bottle and say, hopefully judges will like it.
Oh dear, and Izele van Blerk mistake is a bottle of wine to seek out and cherish. She really does have a very special touch. KWV is a big name in South African wine, even bigger, Nederburg. And that, Michael Fridjhon, brings us to the story that got so many people raising an eyebrow. Whoa, what's happened here? This is a wine that sits very much in the middle rows of your local supermarket. It's not a wine to blow the bank. It's a wine that's made in reasonable volumes. And yet here is a wine, and I'm drinking some of the rosé equivalent, but it was the Shiraz from the Wine Masters series from Nederburg, extremely well priced, that went through the judging process. And to remind you, this is a blind judging process and came out not just as the best in its particular space, but your overall red wine champion, Michael.
Yeah, so I mean, this has not been without its controversy, as you might imagine. But it's worth just unpacking what a wine has to do in order to finish as best red wine of show. It can't get to the trophy judging unless it's won a gold medal. And as anybody who's ever served on a trophy wine show panel will tell you, a bronze medal is a real achievement at the show. I pulled out some statistics, and over the history of the show, we've judged 21,400 wines, and 11,000 of them, so more than 50%, haven't gone home with a medal. To get a gold medal out of an entry over 22 years of 21,000 wines, there have been 683. I mean, it's 3% possible, and that includes museum class winners. So those panels are unbelievably rigorous. And in the case of the Shiraz panel, I think it pulled out one other Shiraz. I can dig that information out for you, because there was a Shiraz, I think, gold medal. In any event, once it goes forward to the trophy judging, as I said earlier, it's again all blind. And the panelists who are there have the right to indicate a protest vote against any wine which they think was unreasonably jumped up to gold. So you have 9 judges judging, and if a wine gets 5 black marks against it, it may hold its gold medal, it may never win a best in class, it may never win a trophy. So that's an additional filter to make sure that no wine that gets there on anything except merit. So not only did the Nederburg Shiraz pass that test, it emerged as the highest scoring Shiraz of the show. We then tally all of the scores of all of the trophy judges, the 3 internationals, the 6 South Africans, and the red wine that gets the highest score overall becomes the best red wine of show. So it got through, it got there, it passed through all of those hoops and emerged, in the opinion of all of those judges, as the best red wine of show. There's no fluke to that at all. It is a very clear indicator that this is a delicious bottle of wine, and bear in mind that the judges have no idea what the price is. They're looking at wines at 500, 700, 300 Rand a bottle, and here is a wine at around 100 Rand a bottle that comes in and flattens all the competition. It is a tribute to South African viticulture. It's a tribute, obviously, to the fruit buying team at Nederburg. And of course, it's a tribute to the winemaking team that they assemble a wine of this quality and put it forward to the show, and it gets the result that it does.
It is wine's equivalent of unmasking the masked singer when the judging is done. Honest answer, Mr. Fridjhon. How surprised were you when you discovered what this winning Shiraz was?
You know, it's quite interesting. I was surprised, but not at that stage completely astonished. And that's because we've seen things like this before. You know, we've seen almost every year, Nederburg's Wine Masters Noble Late Harvest is a trophy or gold medal winner, as it was this year. So we are not surprised to see Nederburg producing really good wine. So I wasn't surprised to see Nederburg on the trophy lineup after the judging. That is the first time that I see which wines have won gold medals, because everything is kept from me because I have a casting vote at the trophy judging, which I didn't have to exercise at all this year. And there it was with another Nederburg, so that looked okay. The more I thought about it, and the more I saw the price, it kind of grew on me that this was a really astonishing result. It's, as I said earlier, it's a tribute to everything that is being done well in South Africa, and something we should be celebrating rather than trying to undermine or speak ill of.
I am celebrating it very happily myself. Just didn't start celebrating it early enough because, gee, this wine is hard to find at the moment. Zinaschke, I will ask you the same question as I offer hearty and well-deserved congratulations. You're not going to enter a bottle of wine you don't think has got something special to it. But that said, how surprised were you when you found out just how well you'd done?
I was baffled then, because we sat at the awards and the gold medals came out and there wasn't anything for Nederburg. So I thought, oh, okay, we're going to enjoy a nice lunch. And then the trophy winners were called up, and Jamie and I got up for the Winemaster Shiraz, the best Shiraz in class, and the Noble 8 Harvest. And I thought, okay, I'm happy with this. There's probably not going to be anything else left. And then I got called up a second time for the discovery of the show. And I was like, okay, what's happening here? This is probably the end. I don't think I'm going to get up once more again today. And then when they announced the best red wine overall, I think I was so starstruck walking to the stage. I didn't even hear a word that Michael was saying over the microphone. I was flabbergasted.
It's a terrific tribute. It's a tribute on many levels. Michael has alluded to several of them. A wine winning an award like this that is accessible to most people at its price point. It's also a tribute to the extraordinary heritage that Nederburg has and the role that is played in South African wine. But it's also a very special nod to you, to the winemaking team, to this particular wine, because it has delivered something that will now, even with Nederburg, with such a storied history of wine success, this particular bottle will always be remembered as something particularly famous.
Definitely. And I think adding to what Izele said earlier, I think our processes are pretty much the same. So we literally have access to some of the best vineyard blocks in the Western Cape. And even when it comes down to the Winemasters range, not just the Shiraz, but all the wines that we produce in Nederburg, it comes down to building blocks at the end of the day. And we have a dedicated viticulturalist who takes care of all of our producers to make sure that all the blocks are farmed according to our specifications or what we're going to use them for. And then, like Izele said earlier, it all starts out in the vineyard, but in the cellar as well. You need to know your certain blocks, and you need to know the wines and the setup in the cellar, etc. So it all comes down to those specific building blocks. The grapes for this wine was sourced from different coastal regions: Stellenbosch, Paarl, Groenkloof, Philadelphia. And then also it comes down to wood selection. And a couple of years ago, to be honest with you, when my assistant winemaker started in 2021, I actually said to her that I'm not very happy with the style of the Winemaster Shiraz at that stage. We were still bottling 2020 vintage. And we started playing around with different fermentation techniques in the cellar, as well as bringing in a little bit different wood components in terms of barrels and alternatives. And I think it paid off last year already at the Veritas when our 2021 vintage scored a double gold, which we were also actually quite surprised about. But yeah, this is just next level.
It is indeed. Michael, it's a story that will keep running for some time. And again, I'm really happy that it is, because it's getting people talking and it's getting people debating and getting wine into discussions around braais and around dinner tables. I know you had one added point you wanted to make about this particular success.
I wanted to make 2 points related to this. Nederburg had 3 wines at the public tasting, 3 additional wines, 4 in all. To be at the public tasting, you have to have won a silver medal or a gold or a trophy. So those were 4 out of a total of, say, 140 current release wines, if that. And they included a Pinotage silver, a Merlot silver, and a really good Cup Classique that's been on the lees for 7 years, for 84 months. I mean, that's just an extraordinary measure of the quality of, firstly, what's going into the barrels and tanks at Nederburg, and it's a measure of the investment that is going into holding stock back until it's in a position to present. That was the first point. The second point was just to advise viewers, listeners, the seal codes of the batch that wins are precisely indicated on the Trophy Wine Show website. So the quantity produced in a year at Nederburg is large. The batch that was bottled and certified at the time of the samples that were submitted to the show, which is the only batch that we can award the medal for, was nearly 40,000 litres, I think. And the actual batch in question, consumers are able to determine whether the wine they are buying is indeed the wine from that batch or not by going to the website, looking at the seal codes, and then looking at that certification sticker on the neck of the bottle to determine whether that particular bottle lies within the range of stickers issued for that particular bottling. But it is a worthwhile question to put to Zinaschke, which is, this is roughly 10% of the total quantity you made of that vintage. To what extent do you think there will be bottling variation, if any?
Well, let's put that question to Zinaschke. What would your response be to your chairman of the judging?
Yes, definitely, Michael. Samuel and I actually spoke about this, the seal codes and the addition of the stickers to that specific lot. So at Nederburg, this blend was 217,000 litres in total. The batch that we entered was the first bottling of the vintage, which was around about 40,000 litres. But at Nederburg, all our blends, no matter how big or how small, are done once off in a year. But obviously we have very strict specifications to which each SKU must adhere to before bottling, and it gets tasted and signed off by the winemaking team before the wine goes to bottle. But I do believe that there might be certain bottle differences. For instance, this wine was bottled in December 2023. So it has been a bit longer also in bottle and has had some time to settle and find its feet and evolve a bit more than some of the more recent batches that were bottled. But overall, I think overall in terms of the blend quality, it should be pretty much consistent.
One of the holy grails we search for in South Africa is delivering premium in substantial volumes. And for some time, I think Nederburg has been doing this, but there's clearly potential to do even more. And this result won't hurt that charge at all. Well, we've got three fantastic winemakers on the show. Before we wrap up, let's get a quick glimpse at what is on the horizon. The Mentors series, Izele, changes year in, year out. There are constants like the Chenin, as you mentioned, but then you'll find a tiny corner of Carignan halfway up a mountain in the Piccaninny's Club and decide that you want to make 11 bottles of it, and off you go into your top secret lab to produce them. What's on the horizon for the Mentors for your latest range?
Then we just launched the Tempranillo, and it's, if you're lucky, I can get you a bottle. It's been, the sales has been going through the roof with that limited editions. The next limiteds, I can't actually tell you. I might have two in the bottle already, but really unique stories. And I just think we need to push the boundaries. I think there's so many exceptional wines in South Africa, and with Morné winning at Decanter Best at Show again, it just shows you that South African wines are up there, and really, and with Zinaschke and the team from Nederburg winning awards with more volume wines, but really showing you that even if you look at all the South African brands and look at all the South African wines, we are producing exceptionally good quality, and I'm very excited about all the wines in South Africa. I'm very glad I live in South Africa to taste all these exceptionally good wines, and tasting all the wines from other countries. Michael, I'm going to be at the tasting tomorrow, the Bordeaux tasting, but then benchmarking it against the best of South Africa and saying we can also produce what Bordeaux can produce, or what Burgundy can produce, or what the Rhone can produce. So I'm very excited. I'm very glad I live in South Africa to have these lovely winemakers next to me and taste all these exceptionally good wines. But for the Mentors range, always pushing the boundary, and we will have a few more interesting varietals up our sleeve.
I would not expect anything else from you, Izele. The decanter success, Morné, is mentioned there. Again, one of our winemakers who's regularly getting a tip of the hat, red cap or otherwise, from judges around the world. What's particularly exciting you at Delaire Graaf at the moment?
Dan, I think it's for those of you who know Delaire and how beautiful it is. Like every day, it's just exciting, and I think for us in the future of Delaire wine is also we kind of scale down quite a bit. We try to be a bit more estate focused with some other additions, some other wines as well from other areas. But it's the focus is quality. Focus is not to produce a whole lot of wine, just really to focus and just showcase the Bannock. You know, I think I've been there now for quite a few years on Delaire, and the Bannock Valley is something that's very close to my heart and close to the team. I think the valley is still can do much better. So we try to improve and kind of just not just Delaire but the whole valley. I think the winemakers out there is fantastic, and little ward in Stellenbosch. So all exciting, and yeah, thank you very much. It's been a very great evening, and it's always nice to be on the show. And Michael, thank you very much. I think your competition has done very extremely well for the country, the showcasing the quality and the consistency, and yeah, all exciting. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have Morné on. I see amongst our viewers, the great Bubbles Ferreira is watching at the moment over on Instagram, as is the Mauritian wine importer Henri Volbert de Champs-Élysées. Lovely to have both of you amongst our assorted viewers at the moment. Zinaschke, I think when Nederburg, as part of the greater Distel body, moved over to Heineken, there are a lot of people wondering what would happen to the wine business. Now a noted beer giant had taken the reins. How much of a statement of intent is this performance by Nederburg, with not just the Shiraz but the late harvest and the gold and silver performers? How much does it say to the market as a whole? Nederburg's not only not going anywhere, but it's still got plenty of excitement to deliver.
Yes, definitely, Dan. I think if you look at the accolades that Nederburg has received over the past few years, there's definitely no fault in our intrinsics. And to be honest with you, with the Heineken merger, we were all quite worried, to be honest, about the wine brands. But I must say we've spent some time in trade and with some of the new sales representatives and the new members in the marketing team and the sales teams, and everyone is really amped about the wine portfolio. And the newer people are all very passionate and eager to learn. So we're doing a lot of tastings and dinner of discoveries, and we've got some internal training that we're taking the sales reps through. So definitely, obviously, accolades like this definitely strengthening our, like you said, our intent in terms of the wine side. And I think going forward with the passion of the new Heineken and ex-Distel employees, and the quality that we have in the bottle currently, we're not going anywhere.
Keep an eye on the Nederburg show. There is much still to come. Michael, in closing, you've been doing this now for hundreds and hundreds of years. You'd think you'd get bored of it by now, and yet every time we have a conversation, whether it's around the trophy show, whether it's just a new bottle of wine that one or the other of us has found or discovered, there still remains this curiosity that I can't see ever being sated in your career. And this seems to have been another edition of that reward that you continue to get, and the wine that continues to delight, to surprise, to amaze, to astonish, and to just at a very simple level bring you so much happiness.
Yeah, I mean, wine is the gift that keeps on giving. Cape wine especially. I thought actually, if you just look at the lineup of trophy winners on the show this evening, each one of them has won 2 trophies in addition to whatever other awards. 2 trophies at Nederburg, 2 for Morné, who also got the Port Trophy. That's an indication of versatility and skill of winemaking, no question about it. and of course 2 trophies for KWV with the Mentors canvas to go with the Chenin Blanc. So we have this concentration of talent on the one hand, and we have a dynamic young industry in which people are coming in every year with new wines and new labels, and therefore an opportunity for all of us to continue to make new discoveries. It really is the most exciting place in the world of wine for anyone to be right now.
And that, as a link to a final quick question for you, Michael, is probably why you've got Bordeaux rock stars touching down in South Africa this week, ostensibly to showcase some of their wine. I think they're really here because they just want to drink South African wine and enjoy some really world-class bottles. But you do have some aristocrats of Bordeaux in the country with you over the coming days.
We have three proprietors from 3 Medoc chateaus. So there's Jan Schuyler, who I think has been on the show before, from Chateau Kirwan, a property, a Cru Classé estate in Margaux that his family has owned for 100 years. They've owned their negociant business in Bordeaux for over 200 years. There's Veronique Saunders from Chateau Haute-Bailly in the Graves, and there's François Xavier Mariteau from Chateau Brunet de Cru in Saint-Julien. So 3 of the major areas of the Medoc, top-class chateau producers. They're doing a couple of tastings in the Cape, one in Stellenbosch tomorrow, one in Cape Town the next day. There's a walk around in Johannesburg on Thursday. It's a very quick trip for them. I think the additional attraction, and I say additional, of course, to the discovery for all of them of the joys of Cape wine. I've been sending winning wines from the show to Jan, certainly, for several years, and he's always blown away by the quality and then completely gobsmacked at the price. The additional attraction for them, of course, will be a day or 2 at Sabi Sabi, which I think will be the kind of best way for them to wrap up a week of wine.
It's a tough life being a winemaker, whether you're South African or French. Kulu Fine Wines on Instagram commenting on how much the wine show was an enjoyable experience from a tasting perspective in Johannesburg. It's been a pretty enjoyable experience for our 3 winemakers on the show this evening, getting not just Michael Fridjhon's endorsement, but a trio of highly respected international judges and some very well-known local judges as well for an endorsement that, as the sales have shown for all 3 brands, carries considerable weight and allows us, as those who love to drink wine, either a reminder of just how good the stuff we know is, or a point in the right direction for stuff that maybe not quite so familiar. And that is the combined beauty of the Investec Trophy Wine Show. Zinaschke, congratulations again. I think it's terrific to see this particular result for you and for Nederburg and South African wine. Izele, no surprises whatsoever. In fact, I think you need to withdraw for a year or 2. It's just too many trophies. Give everybody else a chance. Morné not far behind there as well. But 2 or 3 of you, it's lovely to be able to spend some time with you and to get some insight into these wines. And Michael, it sounds like it must just be so much fun. Stick your feet up, drink hundreds of bottles of wine a day and enjoy it all. But I know there's rather a lot of hard work that goes into it. And that hard work is exactly why this particular show has the set of credentials that it does. So to you and your judging team, thank you. To all of you, I'm off to find some more Delaire, Graaf, some more Mentors and some more Nederburg. If you'd like a little more detail, then the Trophy Wine Show can give you a full breakdown. And it won't be too long, I'm sure, before all 4 of my guests are back on the show. But for now, with a glass of Grenache Carignan Rosé from Nederburg in hand, thank you all very much, and congratulations to all 4 of you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Miraculously, I am still awake, having got up so early for the cricket this morning. My night is not done. Over to join the Sunshine Tour to host their evening of greatness on the back of a great day for golf and for wine and for cricket. Sport and wine, they're always just such great ambassadors for South Africa. Do look at the Trophy Wine Show for a little more detail, should you require it. Some terrific winners, some wines you might not have heard of, and a great endorsement of some really top South African producers. So that is the Investec Trophy Wine Show with Michael Fridjhon on team for this year. A big thank you to our Delaire, Graaf, KWV, the Mentors, and Nederburg teams for a really cool look into what goes into making this particular show, making the top wine, and why it still makes our winemakers so proud, and rightly so. It's Dan Really Likes Wine for another week. We'll be back live again next Monday, back with the magazine show on Thursday. Until then, have a great week, and fingers crossed, come Saturday night, there's more cricket celebration to be had. From the Old Oak at Royal Johannesburg, Dan Really Likes Wine with Norman Goodfellows. Goodbye.